Okay, so always same people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen are the pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video as there is a bonus pair there for you. Make sure you do drop a like, subscribe to the channel before the video does start. I'll also go through my trade for the week first, progress through that, and then we'll take a look at the pairs we're going to analyze. If there is a particular pair you do want to skip ahead to, feel free to use the timestamps which is below. But I did have one position carried over from last week, New Zealand CHF longs. I was trailed out at break even for this position. Did see some nice momentum, but didn't really get going. The market is a bit flat, so I kind of expect a bit of a rocky move here for New Zealand CHF. I wasn't expecting price to necessarily blast straight in my favor. But we did eventually see some momentum. I waited for price to clear the resistance here because I understood that whilst price is below resistance, I could still see a lot of consolidation, price kind of coming back into my entry, back into profit, back and forth. But essentially we held support very, very well. I hopped into this trade on Friday last week. So hopped into the trade last Friday, held it over the weekend into this week, of course. And then we did see the break of structure, clearing the high there. So that's when I went break even, because now that price is in my favor, I don't really want to see price now go back against me. But of course, that's what happened. And of course, I did trail out of that position. Happy with it, managed it well. Again, I still do think there's a lot more upside for New Zealand CHF. We're coming from all-time lows, so I do expect us to have a pretty big correction, as we historically do. Every time the market does have these kind of really aggressive spikes, we do see the market kind of redeem that pretty quickly afterwards. So that was the thesis for the trade. I still do expect us to push high as long as we don't go and crack support here. So as long as I don't see price do that next week, I will still be looking for some buys and hopefully can take it back into 0.507, which is the target I had for the trade, back into this area where all that momentum came from. No new trades this week though. I was looking at a lot of the yen pairs, didn't quite set up. USD pairs a little bit all over the place. So yeah, I was didn't get any other positions unfortunately, but hopefully that can change next week. We'll take a look at the DXY, then we'll go through Euro and other pairs as well. DXY still looks pretty bearish to me. I do think we can continue to push back to the lows at 98. I have marked out this long-standing trend line, which price is doing a pretty good job at respecting. Price did pull back this week. We had a really nice retest of resistance here, and then we did get a bit of a sell. So the way I'm kind of looking at price right now for the dollar is that we are caught in a bit of a range here. In the market, it's kind of a bit flat. Overall, yes, we're very much in a bearish market, as illustrated with that trend line, and I do still expect us to get back to the low. But a smart trade for the dollar would be waiting for price to clear support here, then looking for some pullbacks on an intraday time frame, maybe like Euro or something, and then looking for the sells there for the dollar, maybe buys on Euro USD, which we'll get to shortly. I think that will be a nice high probability setup because you've got the indication that the sellers are in control with the break of support, and now we can use that support as resistance to favor entries and take advantage of that momentum back into lows. If price was to now break to the upside, past the trend line and past that resistance, then I actually do favor some more upside for USD next week and a push back into these highs at 101 or 102, we'll call it. So there could be some nice buying opportunities for dollar if we do clear resistance here on the retest, similar to the sell setup, just on the break retest to the upside. But I do favor the sells because I still expect to see that bearish trend continue. But things can change quickly in the market, and if you do see a rally, strong break of the highs, well then we've got clear targets back at 102 roughly for some buys. So be aware of both possibilities because we are pretty flat. We could break out either direction, but if the trend is to continue, you would expect us to break lower. And same situation for Euro USD pretty much. Market is pretty flat here. We did kind of clear lows here, break structure, which is something I didn't want to see happen this week, but I still do expect price to push on. We're still kind of respecting this trend line here, and that does still just about keep me bullish. But again, similar to the dollar, we do have some resistance here, which price is respecting pretty well. And I think simply waiting for the break of that will invite some really nice buying opportunities for a pullback, retest, and a continuation back into the high. If we are going to see the continuation of this bullish trend, well, you would expect to see resistance there break, hopefully some retest opportunities, and you got some clear targets back at 1.15697. So that would be a nice setup, especially intraday. You can probably drop like hourly, maybe even lower, really maximize risk to reward and make that opportunity, pretty profitable. So I do like the opportunity there for the dollar. In terms of the shorts, I do want to see us clear the trend line and more importantly, clear support here. And then that will make me pretty bearish on euro, expecting at least a swing back into the prior low. So there could be, again, some nice short opportunities intraday there to take advantage of, similar to the DXY. I probably will keep an eye on them both to see how they move with one another. If to see the dollar does break to the upside and we see euro do break to the downside, well, because they're both in sync, we probably will see a nice short opportunity, take it back into the low, and vice versa with the buys there as well. But euro is pretty flat right now. We are back and forth a little bit. No kind of overall momentum in the market right now like we were seeing earlier in the year. So we're really waiting for structure to break, more momentum to come into the market, and finding some opportunities on the back of that. So keep an eye on a breaking retest of 1.142 and also 1.121. I do think that can present some really nice opportunities next week. So that's the plan there for euro. Okay, so next up we've got dollar yen. So I'm pretty bearish on USD JPY, similar to the DXY. We do have a clear-cut bearish trend. Again, you can see the trend line keeping us bearish, minus slight fake out of it, but for the most part, we are still respecting that trend line. So again, I was anticipating a bit of a bounce at support this week. We did see that happen very, very well. And then we came into resistance and gave us that head and shoulder pattern, which of course we were talking about as the week progressed. Really nice rejection there as well. For dollar yen, I do still fancy a swing to the low, but again, in terms of an opportunity, if you're not short here, then the next best opportunity would be waiting for support there to break and looking for some retest for a short. Likewise, if you're talking about some buys, I would wait for price to break to the upside and again look for a retest for a long. So with the price action dollar yen, it does kind of mirror DXY pretty well, and similar Euro USD as well, and of course the whole USD pair, so you would expect that to a degree, but they do look surprisingly very, very similar. So again, in terms of opportunities, I would stay away from operating inside of here. That's where the most speculation is going to happen, the most indecision. Whereas if you wait for a strong break of support, well, there's a good chance we will continue back to the lows. Of course, it could be a fake out as well, which is why it's important to wait for the retest, just to make sure the probability is really on your side. But in terms of a nice opportunity, again, something you can drop to the lower time frame and take advantage of, I think that breaking retest there makes a load of sense at 142.6. And likewise with the break of resistance here and a retest of that. And again, you got some clear-cut targets back to the high at 148.6 there. So those are the setups I really like there for dollar yen. Because at that point, at least, we'll probably have some momentum to trade there too. The market has been a bit flat, so waiting for those breakouts, hopefully provide some nice smooth runs. But yeah, that's the plan going into next week for USD JPY. Okay, so over to dollar CAD. So very bearish on this one. Again, another USD pair. I do anticipate more USD weakness. CAD was very, very strong at the end of the week, hence why we did get a bit of a slip there to the downside with that CAD strength. But I do still fancy more downside for dollar CAD. I'm looking at this lovely range around 1.36, where we consolidated briefly on the daily chart, ripped to the upside with a lot of momentum. I do think price is naturally going to come back to retest that zone. Might see a potential buying opportunity from that area. We can speak more about that when we do get to that price, but for now, I do expect to see us head towards that level. I said last week, as long as price doesn't break through the high here, I stay bearish. This is, of course, our last swing high, which gave us the new swing low. As long as price remains below that, I stay bearish. Now, I was looking for a bit of a double top here before shorting for dollar CAD, because the pullback was a bit aggressive, more aggressive than I wanted to see. I wanted the pullback to be a bit slower, but with that CAD strength, price did really spill over there. So kind of hoping to see if we can pull back, retest structure here around 1.385. These are the two big zones I was looking to short dollar CAD from. This brief range here before we spilled over, and that consolidation over there as well before, again, we had that massive drop there. So was looking to see if we can get a bit of a double top there. Unfortunately, not too sure if that's the case, but if we do return, I still think that's a great place for a short, so definitely keep an eye on that. There might be some lower time frame opportunities on a retest of some support there around 1.378. So I'd keep an eye on that if you're probably like 15-minute chart. That could be a nice short to look at. But in terms of the direction of dollar CAD, it is very bearish. I do expect us to end up back at that area of demand on the daily chart. So very, very bearish on this one. Hopefully can get pulled back into 1.385. Nice clean double top there. And looking for a push back into that support area. So that will be the plan next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so over to Euro Pounds. I'm starting to like Euro Pounds price action a bit more now. We've had this indication of momentum coming to the market. I've talked a lot about this range that gave us a very strong move to the upside in price. Hasn't come back to retest it since now. And I like the way we had that daily wick into that zone as well, really implying to us that price is tapping into this area. And now seeing a strong shift in momentum. So if price can come back and revisit, what I would be looking for is somewhat of a double bottom here for a long opportunity. Something like that would definitely entice me to the trade, back into support, hopefully nice and corrective as well. Strong rejection like we had earlier, not early in the week, but earlier this week. Find some opportunities there, and again, looking for a bounce. Now, I'm not so optimistic about targets for Euro Pound. Again, possibly we might see a swing all the way back to resistance. 0.87, that is a possibility. You know, push, pull back, push, pull back. Could see another push back to new highs. Structure is just very, very choppy with Euro Pound, so I'm not optimistic in terms of following trends in these conditions. But what I do expect to happen is a bit of a bounce. I think we can at least come back and retest some of these areas. We mark that level across. So anywhere between 0.844 and 847, I think is a healthy level to target. I also like the zone we have trading up around here. Really strong support, resistance, around 0.85300. I think that's also a smart place for a take profit. Again, possibly you do see the big swing, so you might want to leave a position to run. That's up to you. But Euro Pound, I do expect to see quite a big bounce. But I'm just being a bit weary of how far that bounce will take us. But for now, really nice place for an entry. Hopefully you can get price there again, respect it well. I think that's a great place for a target. And at least for next week, I think we can see a push into 0.845. So that'll be the plan there for Euro Pound. Okay, so now on to Aussie dollar. So still very bullish on this one. Just waiting patiently for a good opportunity. I like the zone here at 0.625. I've spoken many times about this zone, probably been going on about it for at least 3 weeks, probably a month now. Looking for this big inverse head and shoulder pattern. There's your left, there's your head, right shoulder. That's what I'm looking to try and get involved on. That's your neckline. Basically, you're looking for this to be a bit of a bottom for this move, and I'm expecting to see some type of a trend back up again. So the plan is very much set in motion. It has been for a while. I haven't really been looking to trade within this ascending channel. Normally when I see ascending channels, I'm always getting ready for price to break lower. And sometimes I'm looking to try and fade the moves if I'm anticipating continuation, or I'm looking for the reversal. In this case, I'm looking for continuation in that direction. But I do want to see a push down, take out some of these weaker lows, and then come back, test some areas of support where you can possibly put a major higher low in, and that could present some really nice swing opportunities, and a swing all the way back to the high up there, which could present some really healthy return on that position, especially in terms of the risk to reward ratio. So Aussie dollar, really like the buys here. Will we get there next week? I doubt it, to be honest. Even if you do see price breakdown, it's going to take us at least a few days to get there. Maybe by the end of the week we might be trading there, but we need to see a very bearish Aussie and quite a bullish dollar for that to happen too. So wait and see. I don't really have any other opportunity to speak about with Aussie dollar apart from the buys there. There might be a sell opportunity on the way down. Let's say if we crack support, there might be a intraday pullback you can look to trade on the way down. So that's something to look at there if you're a bit more intraday. In terms of the bigger swing position, which is where I'm interested, these are the buys I'm after. So still waiting patiently for Aussie dollar. That is still the plan for next week. Okay, so over to New Zealand CAD. So very bullish on this one. Again, similar to Aussie dollar, I've been looking at the same setup for at least a few weeks now, probably coming up to a month. Really strong V-shaped pattern, massive sell, massive recovery. Typically with these V-shaped patterns, you do tend to see a bit of a correction afterwards and then a continuation. And that's simply what I'm looking to try and trade here. Now, in terms of finding an entry, I'm looking at price having another drop back into the low here, then hopefully some buys at that low to take it back into resistance, and then probably a lot further than that. But I think for now, we'll just keep it relatively simple and just focus on a push back into the high there, which is 0.632. But to be honest, I don't think the setup's too far away. We've been ranging, which is actually something I quite like, because there'll be a lot of buyers and sellers, stop losses above the highs and above the lows, looking to see if we can go run that, take out some liquidity, and then get the run. So I think that basically adds confidence to the position and the likelihood of it playing out as well. And yeah, the fact that prices found it very, very difficult to break to the upside probably means we will get that flush to the downside. Price probably will take out this wick low. And if I can see some really strong rejection shortly afterwards, that will be my entry signal. Entries in this area roughly, so looking around 0.816 and targets back into the highs there. You know, keeping it simple, basically just looking for impulse correction, impulse pattern, and that is kind of like my bull flag there. So yeah, waiting for the entries in that area, not too far away. Probably Monday, Tuesday could actually see some opportunities start to present themselves, so keep an eye on that. But I still really like the price action for New Zealand CAD and still expecting a drive higher back to 0.832. So that will be the plan next week for New Zealand CAD. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So still very bearish on this one. I still do think price is forming some type of top here for a push down. Don't get me wrong, the trend is still very much up and we might still see a lot more upside. But I do like the opportunities for at least some short-term sell opportunities to take it lower, and then maybe we do continue higher. We've also taken out the COVID highs quite a while back now, so I do think we can at least see a bit of a drop for that and then possibly a continuation. And if I drop to the daily chart, it does look like a really nice head and shoulder pattern is starting to pan out. Got a left shoulder there, you got a head and possibly right shoulder. And I like the way we've been very corrective on the way up. That kind of paints the picture of not seeing much momentum anymore to the upside. The trend is starting to fatigue, hence sellers entering the market and possibly a bit of a rollover to the downside. So I do like the sells here for pound NZD. I actually did miss an entry this week on pound NZD. A very strong reaction, which came about whilst I was sleeping. I think we had New Zealand interest rate this week, I believe it was, and I completely forgot about it, but a really strong reaction, and I woke up, price was already melting a little bit, so I did miss the entry there. But if we can come back, respect that area again, which given how price is moving, I don't think is too unrealistic. We could easily see another drive higher. Basically, as long as we can hold at 2.275, I stay bearish. If I see price rally through this well, yeah, that could easily be a nice opportunity for a long break and retest, and possibly we see the trend continue back to highs at 2.32. So look out for that as well, because we're not guaranteed to sell off, of course. If we do run through the highs here, I will look to change that bias and be bullish for pound NZD. But for now, resistance is still holding, that head and shoulder pattern still in play, and I'm looking for a return back to support at 2.217. So that's the plan there for pound NZD. I also want to point out as well, there's pretty strong support here too. So if you don't return back to resistance, again, definitely an opportunity on the intraday level. A retest of this zone here could provide some nice opportunities there. So I would also keep an eye on that support at 2.252. But in terms of direction, still looking for a price to sell off and a return back to support there. So that's the plan next week for pound NZD. Okay, so next up we got CAD Yen. So CAD Yen, I'm kind of just boxed this off as and chalked it to a range for now. I'm just going to wait for price to clear the highs, really. Clear the highs or clear the lows, then look for opportunities outside of those areas, because inside of here, I'm just staying away. Very speculative price action. I did talk about support at this area. I was expecting it to hold and give us a bit of a drive higher. We did see that happen, but still the conditions are not optimal. I know the better conditions for me are trending conditions, and when conditions do chop around like this, I tend to want to stay away. So I haven't really been looking to trade CAD Yen. Support did hold very nice, but it could have easily broken through, and there was quite a few wicks there which might have kind of few people out first before the move too. So you get more of that price action when things get choppy like this. So I'm kind of waiting for price just to clear highs or clear lows and hopefully find some momentum and pullback opportunities afterwards, because I think CAD Yen has been a bit of a range for a while now, since March, early March there. So I do think we'll probably get a decent sized breakout when it does pick a direction as to which way it wants to go. So the pullbacks and the retests afterwards should provide some nice moves. And there's other pairs which just look better. So I won't want to waste my time inside the middle of the range there. But yeah, CAD Yen, clear resistance, clear support, waiting for price to clear the high or the low. Might happen next week, might not. There might still be some sells as we drive back into resistance. So if you are eager to trade CAD Yen, I would suggest keep an eye on rejections at the highs there too. But in terms of what I would rather wait to trade, would definitely be the breakouts. So waiting for 105.850 to clear, or 101.500 to clear, and then I'll be looking for opportunities on retests of those levels. In terms of targets, I would just look at the relative swing low or the swing high. So if you do break out, then pull back, well, whatever that low is, that would of course make for at least a good first target, even if you want to push trade further. Same with the highs there too. That will at least make a good first target or a complete target. It depends how big the breakout is as well. But we can go into a bit more detail when we eventually get it. But for now, that's the plan next week for CAD Yen. Okay, so over to pound USD. So still very bullish on this one. As a whole, we cleared resistance very well last week. Of course, we had that lovely bullish candle break in the highs very well. So kind of setting the tone. I said as long as price stays above this area, I stay bullish for pound USD. If we were to close back below, that would be a bearish signal. It would just be a fake out. And we can probably expect price to sell off the week after. At the moment, with this week, we close above support, so still retains that bullish bias. Of course, same goes for next week. If we do close back below, we're back to square one, price still rejecting resistance, we could sell off the week after. So I will still keep an eye on that, but for now we're above structure, above support, and still respecting it. So I'm keeping an eye on this double bottom opportunity. I think pound USD is one of the clearer USD pairs in terms of the price action, in terms of the setup. I like the momentum in the market. We're still having a pretty clear uptrend with pretty healthy momentum, nice drive to the upside as well. As long as we can maintain this as support, I think a nice double bottom could present itself at that support level at 1.342, and we can ride that back to highs just below 1.36. So pound USD, I like the setup a lot. Again, it does ride on the fact that we hold support here. If we do end up breaking through, of course, we can have a fake out as well. If we break below and then suddenly break back above pretty quickly, you know, that could very much happen too. But if we stay below, especially from a weekly perspective, then that will do. That will probably change my bias. So I'll keep an eye on that as the week progresses. But for now, looking to see if we can get another rejection of support, find some entries, and take it back into the swing high for next week. So over to pound CAD. So we did have price eventually spill over this week. Of course, I mentioned the CAD strength earlier in the video. We saw that come through and pound CAD did drop pretty hard. Now, if I scoot to the weekly chart, you can see we're having a lot of trouble at resistance here. If I get this horizontal ray, take that across, how many weeks have we seen a price try to break above this area but fail and just leave behind the wick? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's clear rejection there. You know, price is having a lot of trouble trying to break through that area. And again, it does tie into the bias I have. I do think pound CAD is getting ready for a big drop. We've been pushing to the upside since the low of September of 2022. So it's been multiple years of a pretty clean uptrend. We did have a bit of a sell-off here, but since then it's been relatively clean. And we've taken out some major highs dating back to 2018 as well. So I do think the market's quite overbought and is likely to pull back, at least have some type of pullback. It might not reverse necessarily, but I do think a pullback is likely, especially when you're seeing support hold, resistance hold like it is doing. So I like the shorts for pound CAD, but again, still being a bit careful because the 4-hour chart is still somewhat bullish. We're still putting major higher highs and higher lows in. But I do like this range here, which is in that wick range on the weekly chart. If price was to pull back into this area, I think that's a nice place for a short. I also marked out this zone, which is definitely a bullish area where we could see support come into play and price push back up again. So I would be careful at this. The market is still in a bearish trend. Yes, we're struggling at highs, but still we could still see buyers drive price high and still see a continuation. So I think this is a good area to potentially take some profits and lock in some gains. But I like the range here because we did spend quite a bit there consolidating. Then just before the week closed, we had that push down, which kind of sets the tone for next week. So I do expect to see some continuation, but I do want us to be back at that zone of resistance applied to short. And then we can start looking at these areas, possibly this lower here as well. I know I do expect us to go a lot further, but again, I'm looking more so for the trade for the week and also areas where it makes sense to probably lock in some gains. So I'll keep an eye on this 1.84 zone, but that'll be the plan next week for pound CAD. Okay, so over to pound yen. So pound yen, I don't really have a clear-cut opportunity for pound yen, to be honest. I can see that we're still rejecting the week's resistance very well. A lot of wicks there to the upside, so we're having a lot of trouble. I still do expect the bigger move for pound yen to be to the downside. I think longer term we are due some type of correction or even reversal even. So I do think pound yen sells could probably kick in, but I need to see structure break because we still do have this bullish structure which we've been looking to follow. Coming into the week, we had that bullish bias. I said we're looking for a bounce, a higher low to form, and a continuation back to resistance, which we did get. But of course, price did fail that resistance. We respected it pretty well. Now, if this is price just respecting this area and price is getting ready to turn around, well, let's go and break structure. That will give me the indication that, okay, sellers, especially from a 4-hour chart anyway, are becoming victorious here. It looks like structure is shifting, and hence we could be looking at a lower high and some more shorts and perhaps a push back down into these lows again. So that could be a setup that does form. It's still very hypothetical because we could very much still find support here and still drive higher. I'm not so enthusiastic with the buys anymore. Like I said, we're still respecting resistance. We're seeing a lot of wicks on the weekly time frame to the upside, which doesn't give you confidence to keep buying the market, especially from a swing point of view. So I do like the sells for pound yen, but that breaker structure is crucial. If we don't get that, then I'm not going to be looking to sell the market. But this is something hypothetically I could be looking at next week for pound yen for some shorts and possibly a swing to the low there as well. So there could be a pretty decent move to be had here for pound yen, but a lot needs to happen before that setup does become valid. So pound yen, like I said, I'm kind of just being a bit cautious this week. Don't really have a crystal clear opportunity. I would argue the market is still bullish with this trend here, but would I still look to follow it? Not so much, no, especially with the fact that we're rejecting resistance. In fact, if we were to break resistance next week, so you see something like that, if pound yen was to do something like that, then yeah, I would like the buys because we're above major resistance now. We've got the signal to signal that price is clear resistance again, so the trend is healthy again. So breaking retest, especially above the high, makes a load of sense. So from a buyer's perspective, that would be a nice setup. But yeah, I'm waiting for either or. I'm seeing a lot of rejection now, so I'm not so optimistic that this bullish setup does happen. I'm more favoring this sell setup, but again, it still needs to take place. So that's the plan next week for pound yen. Okay, so next up we've got gold. So gold, it does look like price is trying to break to the upside. We do have this channel which we mapped out the past couple of weeks. We did respect the channel very well, so I was talking about some shorts coming into the week. I said if the market does respect this level well, that is a short signal. And essentially if the price does break the level, breaks the channel, then of course that is a bullish signal. Of course, price didn't break out. We had price respect the channel very well and a strong close as well, but we haven't really seen price sell off. So that does lead me to believe that maybe the sells don't really have it in them to take it back to the lows, and possibly might see the buyers just step back into the market and possibly a continuation back to the highs. Well, if that's the case, then let's see the breakout to the upside. That will be a strong signal that tells us, okay, buyers are in control, channel's no longer holding, probably not going to form a third lower high here. At that point, pullback and more upside makes sense, and we're probably going to push back to the highs at that point. If we do see price drop to the downside, I still think buys look good, but I would wait for us to retest support here and then look for the longs accordingly. I still think overall gold is still very much in a bullish climate, very bullish trend here. So even if we do sell off for that third lower high, doesn't really put me off the buys. If we do see a big drop through support, especially coming to these areas, then yeah, that would put me off the buys. And I would question the trend of gold at that point. But for now, trend's still up. Market's still very bullish. I like the buys here, and I like the buys above resistance there too. So keep an eye on both setups. I've got a feeling that we might get the break to the upside next week there. So keep a close eye on that, especially intraday. That could be a nice setup, even like a 15-minute chart. If you're looking for something a bit more swing style, then you would want to see price return to some 4-hour support and base some longs from there. But yeah, I am leaning more towards the bullish side of things with gold, but still need some setups to actually materialize before we find some entries. But that will be the plan next week for gold. Okay, so over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, bit of a bearish week this week. I was expecting more upside. I was talking about the double bottom here, which did hold initially. We did see a nice push, but didn't quite get back to highs. Then eventually price did go and break through that support. Now I'm still bullish on Bitcoin as long as price doesn't take up this low here. If we go and do that, then things are looking pretty bearish. And at that point, yeah, I would be looking at another drop there for Bitcoin. And we are still trading at sensitive areas right now. This is the all-time highs. Price is rejecting. This week's candle hasn't closed yet. We'll close on Sunday, but it's not looking very bullish, and I highly doubt that we do. I mean, anything can happen with Bitcoin, really. It is Bitcoin at the end of the day, so that could flip bullish by Sunday potentially. But we are not looking too good. We are rejecting resistance there, and that could mean more downside. So if we do go and break structure, that would set my bias to bearish. And like I said, at that point, I will be looking at lower highs and some shorts. So stay aware of this low. If it does break, I will look to flip that bias. But for now, I still like the bias here. We're still coming into areas of support, demand. I would be looking for price at least form support, respect it again before entering. So at least some type of double bottom or a higher low to form before entering a buy, just to really make sure that support is holding, and buyers are likely to take it higher. But anywhere around this kind of 103 to 102 area would make for a good location for a buy. And I'll say first targets back into this support level there. Strong support will be turning resistance, of course. Now that could take us back down again. Like I said, we are failing at the highs, so I won't be surprised if Bitcoin does spill over. I am still looking for a push back to the all-time high again, 112k. But I would, like I said, advise at least 107 as a first target to the trade. So still bullish on Bitcoin, still hope to see price swing back to the highs. Need some development here to really get the bullish setup to actually take some entries. Key thing to look out for is this low. Let's not take that out. And then, yeah, looking for a drive back into 107k next week and hopefully back into 112. But that's where you can manage your trade and see how it gets along. But that's the plan next week for Bitcoin. Okay, so last but not least, we've got a bonus pair for this week, which is Euro Aussie. So I really like this pair. I like how everything is shaping up. I like how we moved to the upside. It's very corrective, very slow. I do think price is getting ready for a bit of a sell here. On the higher time frames, basically what I'm looking at is an extremely bullish market, and I do expect us to kind of retrace that move. Typically, when we do have these kind of very exaggerated bullish or bearish swings, the market does tend to retrace quite a big chunk of it. A good explanation or example of that is COVID, massive push up. We came back down and erased most of that move. Even the big sell here, I think this is Russia-Ukraine, price reversed most of it. We had a very sharp move there as well. Price retraced most of it. So I do think we are still quite stretched and would like to come back down. There's of course massive support here on the weekly chart, around 1.7, which is a huge psychological level. I do think we can drift towards those areas, but at least for next week anyway, I'm looking for a swing back to the low. Maybe not all done by next week. That might kind of take 2 weeks to get there. Depends on momentum. But that's the direction I'm looking to trade in terms of targets. I think that low makes sense. Then if you're trying to push the trade a bit further, you do have that 1.7 level there. But I've talked about the support level quite a lot. I've been looking for the retest of this level since we cleared it, which was at the start of the month. Now we're coming into that area. So we can see a bit more development there. I'll be looking for an entry, take it back into the lows there, basically looking for another lower high, and hopefully I can squeeze a bit more out of the trade. But basically entries in this area, if we do break above, that probably would put me off the trade, to be honest. So I probably would just let it be. But I'm not convinced about this bullish move. It's just very corrective. We've seen slight glimpses of momentum, but for the most part, it's quite corrective. Yeah, I don't see price just shooting back to the highs. That could be the case, of course. But you got to trade with probability and you got to trade with confluence. And that is pointing to the downside. And of course, that won't be successful every time, but that will give you the edge over a big sample size of trades. And that's simply all I'm looking to trade here. So Euro Aussie, looking for shorts, lovely support, will be taken as resistance. Hopefully you can get some solid entry signals there early next week. Get into some shorts and take it back down into 1.726. So that will be the plan next week for Euro Aussie. And that, guys, does bring us to the end of the analysis. If you have found it useful, please be sure to drop a like on the video. It does really help out. Subscribe to the channel if you do want to see more of the content. And if you don't want to miss out on any uploads or streams, make sure you do hit the bell, which will, of course, keep you notified when I do upload or I do go live. But guys, I really appreciate you tuning in. Comment down below any pairs you're looking to trade next week yourself. I'm interested to find out. But guys, really appreciate you tuning in. Have a great weekend. And of course, I'll catch you all in the new week.